Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. This is our first Voices from the Expressive Therapy Summit 2022 series. And we're going to be speaking with Jeni Swerdlow, who is an art therapist, but also a master drummer and rhythm facilitator. She's the founder of DRUMMM Rhythmic Events out in California. And she's going to be sharing some really amazing information on drumming and the work that she does. And she's going to be teaching on the topic at the upcoming LA Expressive Therapy Summit. And make sure to check out her session and, of course, all of the other amazing therapists that are going to be teaching at this event, all experiential training and stuff that you can bring back and tangibly implement in your practice. You can find more information about Jeni's session and everybody else at www.expressivetherapysummit.com. There you can click on the LA tab and you'll find the registration and, of course, the session information, the program information there. And without further ado, here's the interview with Jeni.
The Creative Psychotherapist is the official podcast of the Creative Clinicians Corner, a practice-building resource for creative psychotherapists. TCP Podcast is the cast for creative, expressive, and experiential-focused psychotherapists curious to learn how to design, build, and scale a thriving private practice. Your host, Raina Lombardi, interviews successful therapists about the tools and strategies they have used to develop creative, focused practices. They also talk about the products, services, and side hustles they have developed using their knowledge and creativity to enhance their therapy practices, make a greater impact in their communities, and diversify their income streams. Welcome. Now here's your host, Raina Lombardi.
Thanks so much for listening to the Creative Psychotherapist podcast. I'm your host, Raina Lombardi, and I'm very excited to welcome my next guest. Her name is Jeni Swerdlow, and she is the founder and chief rhythm activator of DRUMMM Rhythmic Events. DRUMMM's founder and chief rhythm activator, Jeni Swerdlow, is a dynamic and engaging facilitator, presenter, and trainer with a passion for drumming and a mission to build connections through rhythm. Founded in 2000, DRUMMM's popular facilitated drum circles and interactive rhythm events engage 10,000 participants a year at a variety of settings in the US and abroad. Jeni is a certified Village Music Circles global trainer, a registered art therapist, a REMO-Endorsed drum circle facilitator, and trained HealthRHYTHMS and Rhythm to Recovery facilitator. She's a faculty at California Institute of Integral Studies and Women Drummers International and a professional member of the Drum Circle Facilitators Guild. She is best known for her innovative strategies and playful attitude that invite participants to experience the power of being together in rhythm. And some of her notable clients include Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Stanford Medicine. Thanks so much for being here, Jeni.
Hi, Raina. Thanks for having me.
So I have to ask, your business, your passion is rhythm, but you're also an art therapist.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about how that happened?
Sure, I'd love to. So I have a master's degree in art therapy that I got in Chicago many years ago. And I really thought that was my path.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of grad school a few years, and I had been working in the projects on Chicago's West Side, working with a lot of kids and families who had experienced a lot of trauma, working as an art therapist and using the art process to, for self-expression and for healing. And there came a point in my life where I was stuck. I was feeling really burnt out from that work. I was stuck in my own creative, artistic process. And I was really just kind of flailing and needed something, but I didn't know what. So I just kind of up and decided to leave my job. It was time to move on to something else. Got out of a relationship that wasn't working for me. And 2 weeks later, I lost my home in a fire.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, so there was a lot of change that happened. Some of it was intended and some of it was not. But for me, it was a real turning point, and I was really starting over in my life. And I started asking myself what was missing and what did I want to create moving forward. And I had been fantasizing for years about being a drummer. And I had this desire, but I also had this fear and this critical voice in my head that said, Jeni, you can't do that. You're not a drummer. But then everything else falls away. And suddenly it's, I said, but here I am. And I think my dad gave me $100, said, go take a class, get a drum, do something. And so I did just that. I signed up for a West African drumming class in Chicago at the Old Town School of Folk Music. And that first class just completely changed my life and brought me home to myself and lit a fire inside me that was so big that it really became a driving force and has guided me throughout my life and career for the last almost 25 years now.
That's amazing. I'm sorry
So
that you went through that, but it sounds like it really pushed you into a path where you're, living your best life, living in the way that you really are aligned.
it certainly made me feel really alive, and I was showing up in ways that I hadn't before. And so things started changing. And at this point, I began working with juvenile sex offenders in residential treatment. While I was going to every drumming class and every drum circle, and I started performing with all these kinds of, performance art and ensembles and things. And I started bringing my drum into work with me. And I noticed that in my sessions, I was having a really interesting connection with these teenage boys that was very different than the art making process.
Sure.
And they really had a natural affinity to it. And it really helped foster this connection between us and gave them this outlet. And it was just something very different than what I experienced through the art therapy. And so that led me on a journey of exploration. How can we use this ancient technology, this language, this rhythm, this drum, for a deeper kind of connection and healing?
Yeah.
And it was really profound. So after a couple of years of doing that and getting more training and more experience, I decided that I wanted to go off and do my own thing. And so I quit my job in 2000, created DRUMMM Rhythmic Events, and have been bringing that kind of experience to all kinds of groups, for the last, nearly 22 years.
Would you say what you've created is more in line of like holistic therapeutic experiences for people rather than focusing on like more of the psychotherapy aspects of things?
Good question. Rhythm is universal, and it's one of those things that can really be adapted and tailored for any population, for any setting. And so I walk in a lot of worlds, and sometimes I'm in more clinical settings where the intentions are more therapeutic. Sometimes I'm working with corporate executives where it's about team building. I'm in a lot of community and nonprofit organizations where it's about stress relief and wellness. And sometimes it's just about entertainment and fun and celebration. So it's really encompasses all those things.
I love that. I, I love the diversity of the experience. As a therapist, I think, particularly when we're focused on working just doing clinical work, that can be really challenging to only be working in that capacity. But when you have all of these different ways of working, it creates a much different experience. And I think, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I think it helps to maintain our passion for what we do, and builds resilience in not allowing us to get bogged down with some of the challenges that are inherent in the clinical realm of things.
I think that's really true. I mean, I get to tap into my own creativity and really utilize all of my skills as an art therapist, right? It's all about creative self-expression and communication, self-awareness, and also, um, I really think very carefully about how I'm going to deliver a program. How am I going to frame it for a particular group, for a particular setting that's going to really give them the best possible experience? And for me, that's always, the questions that I ask myself is how can I make it engaging, accessible, meaningful, and fun?
Mm.
And so I play a lot, and no two programs look or sound exactly alike. And part of it is whatever, I'm bringing to that particular session or event. And then part of it is what shows up in the moment in the room and in the individuals and in the collective group. And I really love just taking that energy, harnessing that energy, and helping move the group forward, to its highest, musical, individual, human potential, whatever that might be.
Mhm. So when you go in and you facilitate these large scale events, how many people are usually participating? If you were to do a community event, how do you facilitate something that's larger size than maybe what we would expect working in a clinical setting where it's a small group or something?
That's been a lot of trial and error. That's one thing where, having been to many, 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 many rodeos, you learn by doing. Um, and certainly knowing about the group I'm going to be working with, helps make those kind of decisions. Um, Having a very large collection of instruments, bringing in support when it's needed, and uh, keeping things very, simple, right? Bringing it back to the heartbeat, finding that common pulse, that common beat that is there. It's in everything. I mean, it's in everything in the universe. Even the universe has a pulse.
Yeah.
Scientists discovered trees actually have a pulse. So, really tapping into that and helping other people find that in their bodies, in the moment, in their movement, um, and uh, and really trusting in the process. And as expressive arts therapist, I was trained. You really pay attention to who and what is showing up in the room,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
and in any therapy, they talk about you meeting the client where they're at. In this case, it's meeting the individuals or meeting the group where it's at, and drawing on my my experience, my training, my skills to help guide the journey and take people on a on a rhythm ride,
Oh,
if
I
you
like
will.
that. A rhythm ride. That sounds like
Yeah.
a fun trip, a rhythm ride.
Yeah, I think so. And so, community events, I mean, things are different now. We're in a pandemic, so it's not the same. And things
Sure.
aren't happening out in the world like they were. I do a lot of stuff online now, surprisingly, with amazing results, even given the limitations of technology. But I could have anywhere from 10 to 500 people in an event, online or in person.
Wow.
Um,
That's a lot. That's a large group, 500 people, particularly online, to be facilitating a musical process. Can you share a little bit about your thought process of navigating that online space, which is so different from being in the room and feeling the energy of all of that rhythm around you, right? When you're physically in the space, I'm sure you still feel it through the volume of the, technology, but not in the same way.
it's really different, and it's really been a lot of um, make it work moments. I never thought that I would be any kind of online presenter or facilitator, but as soon as the pandemic and the first shutdown hit, I just felt compelled to keep offering my services because I felt such a need and such a calling to the global community. We're all stuck at home. We're all struggling. Everybody's suffering. There's a lot of, stress and grief, and things are, just very, very different, let's just say.
Yeah.
And so I started doing it without really knowing what was going to happen. And because I'm very tenacious and determined and kept learning by trial and error, I discovered that there's actually a lot that we can do to give people that experience that we're all craving, which is a real, genuine human connection
Yeah.
and a venue and a vehicle to express whatever is happening inside, and to maybe even find something worth celebrating and some joy in there, or at least an opportunity to not feel so isolated and alone.
If you're interested in working on your business for the next 6 months in a small group of therapists who are all really committed to growth and learning and supporting one another, I am hosting a small mastermind group, and there are still a few seats left, and I am booking complimentary 20-minute Zoom meetings as a little Q&A to kind of see if it might be the right fit for those that are interested. And if this sounds like you, um, head over to creativeclinicianscorner.com/mastermind, and you should be able to click on the link there on that page that will allow you to book a time slot, a 20-minute time slot. If you don't find any time slots in the calendar, send me an email at creativeclinician@gmail.com, and I will coordinate with you to schedule something that might not be listed on the calendar.
Yeah. I feel like, it certainly has come in waves where people feel like, okay, we're coming out, now we're going back in. And yeah, just riding the transitions. That's an ever-changing landscape of how we're able to connect, whether it be in person or online. And I think a lot of therapists, at first were really resistant about utilizing the technology for a variety of reasons, and I can appreciate and understand them. But I think now people are realizing, okay, this can be effective. This can be a tool that we continue to use in the future, even if it's not the primary one. But people are searching for ways of being able to engage meaningfully with their clients, whoever they may be, uh, through the creative process in the online space. And I'm wondering, in the situation where you go out into the community and you bring all of your instruments for them to use, how do you navigate that online with the clients that might not have access to particular instruments, so that they can still feel like they're getting that sensory experience? Because like the drumming is so much more than just listening to the sound. It is the physical tactile experience of your hands on the instrument, and that reverberation that feedback that you get. How do you help provide that, even though it's through this screen and they might not have an actual drum?
Right. Great question. And you're right. It is about the experience. This is an interactive, you know, uh, you can show up how you are. The great thing about drumming, and I say this, and it turns out that people discover that it's true. Literally anything can be a drum. So whether you're, tapping on your body, tapping on your desk, or I will often send people out on a 1-minute scavenger hunt to find something in their environment that they can play, whether it's a kitchen pot and a wooden spoon, a jar of vitamins that they can shake, a yoga ball or a bucket. I mean, it's amazing to see what people come up with. And that's where it starts to get fun and it starts to get creative. And we suddenly are transcending the boundaries of our environment and of our little, online box,
Yeah.
and finding the creativity and finding the play, and realizing that it's not rocket science, it's just rhythm. And I always ask people at the beginning of any program I do, whether it's in person or online, I always say, hey, before we get started, can I just see by a show of hands, raise your hand if you already know that you're a drummer. And usually almost nobody raises their hands, as you might expect.
Sure.
And I explain that, if you have a heartbeat, you have rhythm. That rhythm lives inside of us. Our heart is pulsing rhythm throughout our bodies. The whole time that we're alive, we are hardwired for it. And it doesn't matter our age, our culture, what language we speak, where in the world we are, what our gender or our abilities, it's in there.
Yeah.
So, I think it gives people a little bit of just an permission or something to say, oh, maybe that's true. And then I usually do something that I say, okay, everybody clap your hands with me. And everybody's clapping their hands with me. And I say, okay, guess what? You just passed the rhythm test, because this is rhythm. And if you can do that, even if you think you don't or can, if you can do that, guess what? You do in fact have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's particularly exciting with adults who have kind of shut themselves off from their creative side, or they don't see themselves as particularly creative or artistic or musical. about the work that we all do is that we get to invite people back into that sense of playfulness and simple joy of, that activity. And we forget how much we need that um, as adults.
We do. We do. And there's something really powerful that happens when everybody in the room or in the circle or, is in that space and in that moment and in that rhythm at the same time. We call it entrainment, which is basically synchronizing. So when the rhythm syncs up, there's it can be a very powerful experience, to feel so connected to the moment, yourself, your body, your mind, and to others, to be seen and heard, and it's an invitation to tap into something deeper. And we know that, our nervous system needs that. We need that rhythm. We need that synchrony. And so there's a lot of things that are happening simultaneously when we're in that experience, when we're in the moment, even if we don't consider ourselves particularly, good at it. And I'm using air quotes around good.
Yes. Yeah.
There's all sorts of amazing things, science has shown us that happen within our brain and our body just from that experience of being in rhythm. So to me, that's like, not only is it fun and, and all these other things, but, you're telling me, I'm saying science is telling me, and I'm telling you and everybody listening, they've shown that this activity can reduce stress on a cellular level.
Yeah,
reduce
that's profound.
In your body. It boosts your immune system. Your brain releases endorphins, which are your body's natural mood enhancer and feel-good drug. So there's all sorts of good stuff going on, while hopefully people are playing their hearts out and sharing their spirit, however whatever that looks or sounds like.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever I've been in drum circles like that where it comes together. I always cry. I don't know. It's just a release that happens and the tears just flow. And
Wow.
it's always such a cool experience. It's a joyful, tearful experience, but I can't help it. It just happens.
Sounds like a real release.
Yeah.
Touching something really, really, really deep.
Yeah, it's a beautiful experience to be in that space when it happens.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. And, as a drummer, when I get into that space, it's like everything else falls away. Time falls away, space falls away. And when I'm really there in the music and in the moment and all the thinking, the parts of our brain that are responsible for planning and analyzing and organizing and judging, those all go silent. And that, to me, even if it's just for a moment, that moment is liberation. That moment is everything.
Yeah.
And that really inspires, what I do and wanting to give people, access to that kind of experience. Now, I don't tell anybody like, oh, you're going to have X, Y, or Z, or you're going to feel A, B, or C. I just try and create these opportunities and these experiences and these invitations for people to explore and discover for themselves, whatever it's going to be.
Very cool. So I understand that at the upcoming 2022 Expressive Therapy Summit in Los Angeles, you're going to be facilitating some training for other therapists and people that attend the conference. Can you share a little bit about what you're going to be teaching people about how to use rhythm to enhance life?
Sure. And I got to say, I'm going to be participating all over the event all weekend. So
Awesome.
people can drop in on a drum circle and just have that kind of experience. They can come to the Saturday night event, which is going to be a whole rhythm experience facilitated by my good friend John Fitzgerald, and I'm going to be supporting that. And I'm going to be doing a 6-hour training introducing drum circle facilitation and drumming for well-being skills and techniques for clinicians. And this is going to be a hands-on, deep dive into how do we facilitate rhythm for, any type of group or setting. How can we use basic skills, basic techniques, understand the concepts and behind it. There's going to be lots of practice time. People are really going to come away being able to take this stuff and run with it and plug it in and apply it to their work. And it's going to be, it's just a really fun and really action-packed day that I'm really looking forward to.
It sounds really exciting. 6 hours of drumming sounds like a wonderful way to spend a day at a conference, honestly.
I think so. And I hope other people do too. I do these trainings, elsewhere. So I've been doing this for a few years now through Village Music Circles, which is the organization founded by Arthur Hull, who's considered, we used to call him the founding father of the modern day drum circle. He doesn't like that anymore. He says, no, I'm more like the midwife. So, but I've spent years learning from him, and now I'm sharing, his teachings with the world. And the other thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a 3-hour session that incorporates drumming, collage, journaling, and some individual and group process for self-care and wellness for therapists. And this is really exciting to me because I get to bring in more of my creative, expressive, and art therapy background using visual art making. And it's just a really fertile, I call it a fertile, experience where we get to turn inward, and get deep and really, get into all the facets of, who we are and where are we right now and what are we envisioning for ourselves in the future, and looking at it from a lot of different perspectives.
I love that, that weaving the processes together and going back and forth between the writing, the music, and the visual art. We can express something unique about ourselves in each language, which they're all so different and they all have limitations. And when you're pulling them all together, I loved your use of the word fertile, and that you create more opportunities for meaning making, pulling them all together. Such a good word for it, fertile.
Yeah, thank you. I've been doing this as as a workshop, either a half day or a day long workshop out in the community for a few years. I've also been able to work with other clinicians for staff retreats and that kind of thing. And it's always just what comes out of it is just it's exciting to see the process and to see what people tap into and what comes out through it.
Definitely, definitely. So if people wanted to learn more about you and more about drum, where can they find you?
Well, my website is www.drumm.com, and that's drum with 3 M's because drumming is good. So that's the best way to find me. And I've got lots of stuff, lots of articles and lots of other offerings I'm going to be doing in person here in the Bay Area and Northern California, as well as online. And I've got lots of articles and videos and all kinds of things for people to see.
Awesome. Well, I will be sure to put your website in the show notes, which it is DRUMMM.com. So 3 M's for the long drum. I like that. It's good. And I'm assuming on social media also people can find you there. And I'll put those links from your website in the show notes as well. And I know you have a YouTube station where people can actually like see and listen and see how you're guiding people with drumming. And so I'll put a link to your YouTube channel where people can find those videos as well. And we'll make sure to put the link for the summit. So the upcoming LA summit, we'll have that link in the show notes as well. But in case you don't want to look at the show notes, it's simple. It's just www.expressivetherapysummit.com, and there you'll be able to choose between New York or LA, and then you'll be able to find the program, which will be pretty extensive, but it sounds really exciting and many opportunities to work with Jeni and learn from her and her vast experience in facilitating rhythm as a way of connection and healing. So thank you so much for being here, Jeni.
Oh, Raina, it was an honor and a pleasure. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Creative Psychotherapist Podcast. This voice is from the Expressive Therapy Summit 2022 series. It was the first in the series. We'll be hearing from a variety of other really talented, amazing therapists that are doing such cool work in the world. And I'm just so excited that I get to have these conversations. I feel really, really blessed and fortunate. Because I learn so much in every conversation, and I feel like they share, small bits of wisdom that just deeply resonate. And I hope that they resonate with you. And I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Jeni and learning about how she followed her heart and made the switch into drumming. I just loved that part of her story. And you can learn more about what she's going to be teaching at by heading over to www.expressivetherapysummit.com. There you can click on the LA tab and click on the program tab, and you can find more information about her session, which is going to be drumming. And of course, it's going to be amazing. And I hope that, I hope that you take the time to check it out and check out all the other therapists that are going to be teaching there and what they're going to be teaching on. Next week, we are going to share an interview with Dr. Amber Gray, and that's really going to be focused on dance movement therapy and specifically her integration of polyvagal informed approaches to dance movement therapy and something called continuum. You'll also be hearing from 3 talented expressive arts therapists who run the California Institute of Integral Studies, their expressive therapies graduate department, in episode 3, which will air on February 9th. And they're going to be sharing about their unique approaches to interventions with clients, but also how they integrate that into how they run the program. And I just thought that was like really, really cool. And then the week after, you'll hear from Wanda Montemayor, and she's going to be sharing about her approach to doing community art therapy with mosaic murals, working with adolescents and other great stuff too. So keep listening to the series and let us know what you think. If you are really appreciating the show, please do write feedback on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you happen to listen, and subscribe to the show. We really appreciate your listenership. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll talk at you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Creative Psychotherapist. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. For show notes, downloads, and additional resources, head over to the website at www.creativeclinicianscorner.com.